special guests. And they're waiting backstage. Get loud, welcome them. They're going to be coming out. So our first guest that I would like to welcome to the stage, please welcome the voice of Drillings and have a seat. Your nameplate is right there waiting for you. The Sunny String. Next, we have the voice of Bulma, Monica Rial. Thank you for joining us. And of course, no panel would be complete without the Prince of Saiyans himself.
Two of them. I get two mics.
Hey!
Voice of power.
How you guys doing?
Fantastic.
How are you?
Great. We actually have one other guest joining us here today, a longtime Dragon Ball Z fan and NFL star. Please welcome Mohamed Sanu of the Atlanta Falcons. What's up? Hello.
He is so nice.
So for the first part of this panel, we are actually going to be taking a look back at Dragon Ball Z over the years. I want to talk to you guys a little bit just about your experiences with working on this famous, incredible show. So it'll be pretty casual. We'll have kind of a cool conversation. Sound good? Yeah. All right, first question. And this is kind of a throwback for those of you who were there for the original run. How did you first prepare for your character when you got the role?
I wish I started. I was heavily studying the manga and trying to wrap my head around how much screaming I was going to have to do. And I didn't think, I thought it was going to be like this much, but it ended up being like this much. And I was researching some lore about the original story from the Great Journey West and the Monkey King and the lore around Dragon Ball, and I was watching the anime as much as possible. And then it was a process of being the character for so many years to grow into that character. But it was definitely when I first got the part, I didn't know I was playing the main character for like 2 weeks, and then Chris is like, "Oh yeah, you do realize you played the main character in that show, right?" I'm like, "Really? That's awesome!" Like I totally. Seriously, I did not know. It was great.
I love your Chris Sabat impression, by the way.
Yeah, like Chris. Yeah, man.
Well, when Sean first came in, it's like, well, I don't see how my character's even in this show.
Yeah.
Isn't this show just about a green guy who's like abusing some kid in the woods or something? It's like, no, you'll have something to do, I think.
Well, speaking of, how did you prepare? I mean, you've deep in it.
My preparation was a little more complicated because I was cast kind of in late '98 as Yamcha in this Dragon Ball movie called Sleeping Princess at Devil's Castle, which some of you may have rotting away on your shelf still, or maybe you've since purchased the DVD. Anyway, Funimation was a small company. They're like, hey, we need to kind of cast all these actors. So I was running around to like universities and schools and agencies trying to find like people who would come in for like a large casting call. Mm-hmm. And so that's when we had the large audition. We auditioned thousands of people, and that's where we first met Sunny, that's where we first met Sean, that's where we first met like all the original cast members. But even back in those days, we only had to cast like 11 people because the cast wasn't that big yet. We were just sort of in that end. Where we started was kind of the end of basically the Ginyu Force and stuff like that. So, yeah, for me, preparing, a lot of it was just, I don't know, I was pretty stupid back then. I didn't even, I didn't even think about how much damage I could do to my voice. For me, back in those days, I was just like,
I never thought about
this is my job. I'm supposed to scream, and if I don't scream really loudly, people will be upset. So I just kind of did it.
Yeah, you just dove right in.
Any vocal coach now would be so angry about the way I was so irresponsible about the way I handled my vocal health back in those days, but I managed to do it without any damage. In fact, I went to an ENT recently, and they looked at my throat and they're like, your throat looks great.
I went to the ENT recently also, and he said, wow, you have huge, well-developed neck muscles. And I said, that's from screaming on this show for 20 years. And he said, your vocal cords look pristine. I'm like,
Are you guys
I'm really
dating now?
surprised. No, we're not. We're not dating. But yeah, I got the same report. We're so lucky.
So the next thing I actually wanted to ask you guys.
Can I answer this question?
Oh, actually, yes, go
Thank
for
you.
it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I did have an answer though.
sorry.
When I originally auditioned, I was with a different voice than I ended up with, and the director at the time was a good old boy from Texas, and he said, you know, can you do another voice? And what he didn't know is that by the time I got cast, I started reading the manga, and there was this voice in my head I had for Krillin that sounded more like Popeye on helium. So I said, how about Popeye on helium? And he goes, what would that sound like? I said, I don't know, something like this. Come on, guys, let's go. And he went, so that's how I prepared.
Follow-up to that, do you actually remember what the original voice that you tried was? I know that
That was something like this. Hey, Goku, wait up!
I'm glad you made the right decision.
Are you serious?
Yes, I made the right decision.
Chris, come on. True story.
Have you used that voice on anything else?
On the drive.
I can see why.
Usually when you propose to your wife.
Years.
you just learned for the opportunity. Break it out of the vault. Thank you for that.
Should have used it for Macy's.
You're gonna have to use that voice every time you call me now.
Okay.
Monica!
It's Sonny, how are ya?
I sound like my grandma. So once you started getting familiar with your characters and digging in, obviously we know the show now today, but when you were first starting out, what were your original impressions of the show? And I want to start with Monica.
Well, for me, it was kind of different because I actually watched the show in Spain. So my family is from Spain. So long before I ever even came to the US, there was this little show that came on Saturday mornings called Las Bolas de Dragón. And my little brother does not speak Spanish very well, so he would make me get up really early in the morning, and I've actually voiced every single character in Dragonball.
Hey, I've been there.
But yeah, it was really cool to watch my brother become a fan of something. So much so that we were wandering around looking for manga, anything that had Goku on it, he wanted. And then years and years and years later, two things followed me from Spain. It was Dragon Ball and the Macarena. I was happy about Dragon Ball. Maybe not so much that. So it's really cool to finally be, to come full circle and to be a part of it and to be able to call my little brother and be like, dude, I'm Bulma. Hear him go, what? On the other end, that was really, really
Just leave him voicemail sometimes, just to remind him.
Just to remind him, behave yourself or I'll send Vegeta after you.
Sean?
Oh, what was the question? Oh, my first impressions, yes. I remember times when, especially when everyone was going Super Saiyan, we had trouble distinguishing who was who. And I remember really trying to understand what an increased power level would have to do with hair color. And I was wondering if this was a fashion thing in Japan or something, or I didn't understand what the colors, and the spiky hair, that was really confusing for me, and what yelling had to do with making yourself more powerful. I was like, what is going on here? But I just, kept plowing through it because it was an amazing experience, and it was very cathartic to do all that screaming. I got through a lot of childhood issues by being in the booth, screaming my brains out. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah, a lot of wild impressions in the show. It's a very wild show.
So I actually want to throw it over to Mo for a second, because I know that you are a long-time Dragon Ball Z fan, but what were your original impressions of the show?
I thought it was the coolest show ever, for real. I mean, me and my friends, we would be playing outside as soon as school was over, and then we would run back inside at 5:30 just to watch it on Toonami every day. When we would pick whose house we would watch it at. Like, I'm seriously, like, big fan. So it's just cool just to be here with you guys, and be here with all the characters. So I'm just soaking it all in, for real. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Well, we're really glad that you're here today too. Thank you. Chris, what about you? What were your first impressions?
I was just fascinated by the art, you know, it's really good art. My first impressions were, my first impression was a trash bag. I know that sounds weird, but that's the first thing that the producer handed me when I got to the office. He goes, "Here's what you gotta do to study up for the show." And he handed me a trash bag of VHS tapes and said, "You gotta watch all this now." So I had to like go home and watch a bunch of Dragon Ball on VHS.
Sounds really tough.
And it was, no one else in this room has ever binged Dragon Ball like that before. But it was really bizarre because at the time there was no internet, there was nothing, there was no explanation for it. And I hadn't seen anything like it before. I'd seen like Akira and Fist of the North Star and some of the more famous like early anime, but I'd never seen anything like Dragon Ball. And I'm like, and I quickly realized, because you know, I'm not the kind of guy that watches a ton of TV, but eventually I realized what I'd start telling people later was, if you watch 6 episodes of Dragon Ball, you're going to want to watch the 7th episode every time. You're going to want to watch one more episode. And it was the first like cliffhanger cartoon that I'd ever seen. I think that's the same for a lot of us out here that had never seen a show that just had this long, continuous story.
And I don't know how many American audience members were inured to a serial versus an episodic, because many American cartoons are episodics, but to have a lengthy serial was not real common, if it all happening for American cartoons. So I think that was a real hook for me as well.
Mm-hmm. Sonny?
I actually had watched Dragon Ball. This is gonna make me sound really old, but I rented it.
That's because you're really old.
Blockbuster Video had this strange cartoon with this kid riding on a cloud, and I went, "Oh, that looks cool." And I like cartoons, so I was just watching it. And then once I was cast on this show, I saw a poster with Goku as a kid on a cloud, and I asked Chris. I said, "Oh, I've seen that. What show is that?" And he goes, "That's the show you're on, man."
When did you first realize that Dragon Ball Z was a big deal? That it was a hit? Like, is there a moment where you were just like...
Oh, go ahead, Sonny.
I was going to say our first Comic-Con that the 3 of us went to.
Yeah, the first one we went to, but also even before that, I mean, that was it for me. And it's really weird because it's like it comes in stages. Because early on, I remember going into like a Target, and they had all the TVs up, and I heard my voice coming out of 20 TVs. Yeah. And then they had that punching bag they made with my voice in it that said, "I will not let you beat me. I'm gonna win this fight," over and over and over. And then I was like, wow, we made it. But then like here we are 15, 20 years later, and then, you know, we've got a balloon in the Macy's Day Parade, you know. And I'm like, okay, so did we make it then? We're making it now. Like it just keeps, it's art repeating itself. It just gets bigger and bigger, just like Dragon Ball. So you think you've made it,
Just like Dragon Ball.
Yet another power level.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but
It's insane.
when we came to Comic-Con, it had become #1, but we didn't really know exactly what that meant. And then we started doing the signings, and there were ridiculous lines that went on for hours.
They call it fire
cut
marshal.
off.
Yeah. It was crazy.
It was insane. Yeah.
And still, look at this room. This is amazing. Give you guys.
Hey guys, thank you.
Look at that.
There's 2,000 people in here.
Beautiful thing, man.
1,000 people.
Yeah, 2,000 people in here. 2,000 of us. Monica, did you have a moment where you remembered that it was just like, oh my gosh, this is it. The show is a hit?
It was when my dad is from Spain, and he was the one that told me, "Oh, Monica, you cannot be an actor. You have to like cut hair or do something that you can do forever." Okay, and so my dad for the longest time was like, "Oh, you're just an actor. That means nothing." And then when I ended up being, you know, cast in Dragon Ball and in the show, he's like, "I know if the boss of the dragon. I know it." So when we started going out to eat, and he would introduce people, like the servers and stuff, he'd be like, "This is my daughter, she is Bulma. You know who Bulma is?" It's like, wow, my dad not only knows what Dragon Ball is, he knows my character's name. You guys, this is surreal.
I had a similar story. My mother wanted me to get a CPA for years. She said, please go back to school and get the CPA. You know you like accounting. I'm like, no, I don't like accounting, Mom. You do. And then she kept on until she heard me on TV. And then now my son's a superhero. Not a good one, but he's a superhero.
Come on now.
It's gonna be a really proud moment though, like when your parents hear you on TV. It's gotta be surreal.
It's surreal to hear yourself on TV.
At the same time, it's also kind of like when your parents finally get on Facebook or something.
Yeah.
Because then
Get out
they
of
just,
my business.
I cannot go places with my mother without, like, her, like, she tries so hard not to, but she can't help it. But we'll go to dinner and we'll be eating and she goes, so, do you watch Dragonball? I'm like, Mom, don't do this.
My parents do the same thing.
And
Yeah.
I'll go, like, she goes to a physical therapy, I walk in there and everyone, like, applauds. And I walk in there, clearly you've spoken to my mother.
That's my dad. He'll even wear a t-shirt with his Dragonball on it. Especially if he has Krillin on it. I'm like, oh my God.
Sean and I were talking about how both of our mothers both own that punching bag he was talking about.
Oh yeah, yeah. And we drove on a trip to Iowa, and she took it with us 800 miles. And every time we hit a bump, I'm gonna let you beat me, bump. I'm gonna win this fight. All the way to a family reunion in Iowa.
I remember Vegeta said,
God.
is that all you have? Is that all you have? Did anyone have that punching bag?
Remember from early 2000s, we punched the bag and it made the voice? Somebody had that bag, because they sold a lot of money.
It was before video games.
Yeah, it was before.
Mo, as a fan, do you kind of remember the moment or sort of a time where you were like, oh man, this is a hit?
I mean, for me, it was when I used to wish and hope my mom would be late coming home from work to take me to practice just so I could finish watching the episode. And that's when I knew it was real.
I like that.
So, this is the 30th anniversary this year, and for some of you guys, you've been involved with this for decades.
It's my 20th. Me and Chris is
Yeah.
Sunday at 20th, yeah.
Huge chunk of your lives. Is there a story where you were at an event or interacting with fans where it became real about how long it's been? Like where you've really like seen the passage of time?
Yeah, when people come up to me and go, yeah, I watched this as a kid and now I have grandchildren. I'm like, what? How's that possible? And I named them all Goku and Gohan and they're not kidding. I'm really marginally exaggerating. And that's freaking me out a little bit, you know? It's the 20 years is tripping me out.
Well, for me, it's even more personal. My stepson was a huge fan of Dragon Ball, so anytime he come to visit, it was a convention panel. Just question after question after question. And now his son is 10, and he's a huge fan as well. Except his questions are more like, who would win in a fight, Pops? Goku or Vegeta? And it's like, that's all the questions.
All the hypotheticals.
Yeah, okay, here's the truth about me. I am allergic to the mailbox. I hate mailing things. I cannot do it. I'm incapable of it. I will literally leave something out to mail it and it could literally stay out for years. And in the case of the fan mail that we used to get back in the early days that would come to Funimation and they'd just dump it in your office and I had this guilt about ever like throwing it away. I would keep it all. I open it, I'm like, I'm gonna return this, like crayon drawn picture of Vegeta and I'm gonna sign it and I'm gonna give it back and then it just sort of never happened and it accumulated and then finally, like 15 years later, I opened it back up and I just started replying to everything and my wife was helping me send it back. And then later on, like 5 years later, some girl like came up to me, she's like 28, she goes, hey Chris, this is a weird question, but why'd you send a headshot of yourself to my grandma's house? I was like, oh, that probably did look weird. Did you ever write me? And she goes, oh my gosh, yes I did. I was staying with my grandmother for the summer. Yeah, when we first started working on the show, everyone, like all of you, were kids. You were children, and we would meet you, and you were usually with your parents or something like that. And so now, kind of seeing all of you at this point and experiencing like all of your stories, very similar to yours actually. So many people ran home from school every day, or I was late for school every day. To watch a show, like it's really
Skip school every day.
That's when it really started.
It came on at 3 o'clock in Texas, so we're responsible for a lot of truancy. People would skip their last class so they could watch Dragon Ball Z. Sorry, America.
So this one is...
America answered you.
Thank you, America.
So this one is specifically for Mo. As a professional athlete, is there anything
That's
about
for me? No.
Yeah, I mean, by all means, you are welcome to jump in on this one. If it has impacted your athletic life, feel free to tell us about your athletic career.
I mean, for me, I'm big into Dragon Ball Z. I get a lot of painted characters on my cleats. If a lot of fans know that, whether it's Goku, Vegeta, Trunks, whatever my mood or how I'm feeling that game, that's what I like to portray on my cleat. And like I like to say, I tap into my inner Saiyan or whatever the case may be. But it definitely inspired me a lot.
Does it affect your training at all? Does it make you feel more powerful?
Oh, definitely. When I wake up and I'm like,
Do you want to hire me to root you on when you're working out?
yeah.
It's very expensive, but I'm worth it.
I think it worth every penny. How you would want it?
Come on, Mohammed.
Yeah, you don't want to end up like me on the bench.
Muhammad just reminded me that that's probably one of my favorite things playing this character is you'll meet someone. Obviously, most of us change our voices to do this character because we're playing a character. And my favorite part is when you meet someone, they go, so you Goku, Dragon Ball, yeah, cool. And they're acting cool. And then you do the voice and they go from cool to... like, instantly, no matter what the age, and you just did that a bit, amazing, very happy.
As soon as you did that, I was like, yeah, that's Goku.
I love the light-up.
What's funny though is when you get used to that though, and then when I was in Australia just a few weeks ago, there was one kid who came up and his dad was like, "This is the voice of Vegeta." I go, "Yes, I am," and he goes, I go, "No, I really am actually." He's like,
No, you're not.
"No, you don't, mate. You win on that."
Are we all answering this question? Oh, we're going to the next one. Cool. All right.
No, you're welcome to answer it. If
all right.
you have a big athletic inspiration. Actually, I know that you do some martial arts, don't you?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, after playing Goku for so many years, I haven't been training only because I moved away from the city where my sensei was, but I started getting involved in Shotokan Karate. And it was really difficult because I wanted to be as strong as Goku, and I certainly wasn't. But the funny part was there were so many Dragon Ball Z fans in my karate class. When I'm doing katas or yelling or doing the moves, I naturally do Goku's voice by accident because it's in my... So we'd be in class and it'd be like one move and I go, "Hit!" And then I'd be frozen and then I'd see the person next to me going like this. I'm like, I'm just trying to do karate with you guys here. It's okay. So that was always very, very gratifying because I can't help but sound like that. But.
I have a similar experience because I know Tai Chi, so it's like, but I'm alone when I do it, so it's just me cheering for myself. You did the voice!
That's awesome. So, do you have a favorite scene? I know that's a really, really tough question, but is there a favorite scene that has stuck with you throughout the years or something that's like really made an impact?
Well, it's funny that you're saying that you want to see you want to act again, but because we've done so many video games and we did Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Z Kai, we've acted many of the scenes over and over and over. And especially when we did Kakarot recently, and I remember remembering a lot of the scenes we had to reenact because in Kakarot you can play the entire Dragon Ball story, which is coming out in January, or well, not January, but early 2020. I don't know if it's January or not, but it'll be early 2020, and I'm really excited about it. And we reacted a lot of those scenes. Anywhere where my acting I think is bad, I want to reenact it, but I don't want to reenact any Super Saiyan 3 business, anywhere where I'm screaming for 3 minutes, although it's always gratifying to see your reactions, but I do have some favorite scenes. I love the scenes in Z where the Goku Vegeta scenes especially, because the Majin stuff, that big arc where Chris kind of elucidated this to me where he's like, that's really like the coolest moment. Dragon Ball is in many ways a lot about the Goku Vegeta relationship. It's its own arc. And that's one of my favorite scenes. And then of course the father-son Kamehameha Gohan against Cell. I really enjoy that scene a lot, yeah. Chris, I'm sorry, I jumped on that. Do you have anything?
There's so many epic scenes that are pretty obvious, but some of the stuff that I found really funny was just, I loved like some of the filler stuff.
Oh yeah.
I kind of really miss like the driving school episode.
The Krillin gets a girlfriend, that was my favorite. That girlfriend Marin, and at the end he's got Master Roshi's sunglasses on and he's laughing and crying at the same time and a little tear comes down. That was a fun scene to do.
Dude, Hey, since some of the people that make this show are actually here in the audience tonight, I want to encourage them, if they're going to bring back another villain at some point in the future, they should bring back Marin.
Oh, that'd be great.
Marin and Launch and have them fuse.
Yeah. And then she could approach 18 and go, by the way, your daughter's named after me.
Oh, that would be a problem.
Yeah, it would be a problem.
Mine's a total downer.
I mean, bring it on.
Okay, well, if you haven't seen Dragon Ball Z, spoiler alert, so there is a point where Bulma finds out that something horrible has happened to her husband. And that was a really hard scene for me because there was so much emotion behind it, but it's still one that sticks out because that scream that I did, I remember feeling like years and years and years of weight was lifted off my shoulders. Like, it was such a cathartic scream that I feel like it was almost like free therapy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just screamed my guts out, but I will never forget that because that scene is one of the first times in a long time that I had actual tears in the booth, like freaking out. And I didn't expect Dragon Ball to hit me that way, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, this is such a fun. Oh, it's dark, y'all.
Mo, do you have a favorite scene?
That's tough for real. I would say
that's a tough question.
when Goku turned Super Saiyan for the first time.
You're welcome.
That one was tough.
What about Vegeta moments? You like?
One of my favorite Vegeta moments is the Majin series.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Fighting Goku, that was one of my favorite. When that smile, when they're in the martial arts tournament.
Yeah.
That smile is the coldest smile ever.
Right.
So actually, what is a fight matchup that you would want to see happen in the show?
Bubbles versus Gregory. King Kai versus
King Kai versus Bubbles.
Or, I don't know.
I keep begging Bandai to please, Bandai Namco to add Bubbles and Gregor as playable characters.
Yes.
And I also want Mr. Popo as a playable character. He's a good fighter.
What matchup would you want to see, though?
I would like to see a cage match with all the Dragon Ball Z villains. Just all melee together.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be
Then we'd really see who the greatest villain is.
I would just like to fight. Just once, I want to get in there and hit some people up. Yeah, people that aren't beers, you know.
You slide beers.
True. Yeah.
That's true.
I just want to fight other people that aren't a god of destruction.
You went right to the top. You went straight for the big one. Mo, what about you?
Vegeta and Beerus would be mine for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
But I would say I want to see Whis and his sister fight.
That would be interesting.
Ooh,
Yeah, we Savados. Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah, that would actually
I like that
that's an
idea.
interesting one. I think that it'd just be a very proper fight the whole time. So what is something that you would tell your characters at the beginning of the series that might actually help them avoid something or improve a situation, if you could impart some wisdom?
Maybe not taunt the enemy to get their strongest before you fight them when you're in danger, just so you can have a good time fighting them, maybe, and grow more sense of beans, maybe. They only have 4 or 5 around. How often those things grow? Can't they make crops of them?
Yeah.
I would tell Bulma to keep better notes when creating time machines. Maybe make a few extra, have a whole legion of them just in case. Just to be safe.
Listen, Krillin, if you feel like you're getting a little in over your head, it's okay to go home. It's fine. Save that death for another season.
Yeah, Yamcha, it's fine. You can sit this one out, all right?
You ever see robots maybe run?
Yamcha, you may want to look at dating someone else. Because it's not going to go very well for you.
Aww.
And also maybe to Vegeta, hey, don't fight Frieza.
Yeah.
Not good.
Okay, so similarly, is there any advice that you would have given to yourself when you were first starting out?
Invest in the Halls company. Paul's lozenges. So we'll make a lot of money off yourself.
I had to learn very early on to warm up my lips before I went into the studio, because sometimes if you have characters that have very fast flaps or speak very quickly, it's really hard to get your mouth around some of those words. So from a completely like actor crunchy granola standpoint, it was weird because I had to spend a lot of time going but I didn't find that out until after I had canker sores everywhere because I kept biting myself.
Do you have a full warm-up routine?
Oh, I do. I have a whole Bulma warm-up routine. I can't right now.
I know in my head I was like, do I ask? Do I?
Maybe someday I'll film it and I'll put it up on the social medias.
Okay.
One of the things I do is I pronounce the entire alphabet like so I go that kind of stuff.
Well, that's going to be my new warm-up.
We're all learning some voice actor tips.
My advice would be, you're not going to be able to do a different fight react for every single fight react,
Oh,
so
gosh.
don't even bother trying.
I tried to tell you that.
I know. No, it'll be awesome. I'll do a different one for everyone. Like, I was so Goku-y in my early days about how I approached the character, not knowing that. Other advice, I don't know. Don't do 12-hour days in a row. Don't do that. That was hard. We don't have to do that anymore, but back when we were trying to get Cartoon Network production deadlines, we were doing a lot of hard hours. I probably should have not done them, or at least put my foot down on some of them. But I don't. Other than that, I don't know what else I could tell myself. How do you deal with a show like this in advance? You know, you just gotta. It's so intense. You just gotta show up and bring it. You know.
Yeah, I don't know if I went back in time and told myself what this was going to become. I don't know what it would have done. I don't know how it would have changed the path of everything we did.
I think it would have intimidated me.
Yeah,
if I had known it was going to last for 20 years and
It would
the
have
whole
intimidated
career.
me, yeah.
we were recording it kind of in a vacuum. Well, in an unair-conditioned vacuum. Like it was
In a bank.
It was in a bank building.
pretty hot.
In a box. It was hardly conditioned, but yeah, I think the only thing I regret is that one time at the launch of the Shonen Jump magazine, I got to meet Akira Toriyama, and apparently he's the creator of Dragon Ball. In case you guys don't know.
In case you guys didn't know.
And I shook his hand, and I shook his hand, and I met him, and it was I just didn't realize that was going to be like the only time he's even come to America or shaken anyone's hand. If I had known that was going to be the last time I ever saw him, because it's most likely I probably won't see him again. Like I would have taken more notes about that meeting, where I would have hugged him and not let him go or something. Because we owe him everything.
Oh yeah.
We owe him absolutely everything. He created all this, and he's not out there like buying Rolexes and riding around in Lamborghinis or whatever. He's just in his house doing his thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't brag about it. Just
And I think
happens to be making the best show in the world.
Well, I think you're hit on an important point, and it speaks to the power of art and one person be able to create. And look, we're all in this room together, and we're just a small fraction of the millions of Dragon Ball fans all over the world. And it's just one guy drawing a manga, and then look what it's become, you know. And our friendships, like we're all been friends for 20 years now. And the richness of my life I owe to Akira Toriyama and the people that create Dragon Ball. So it's, you know, I know you guys will say, well, Dragon Ball meant this much to me, and it got me through these rough times. And well, when I get to step into the character to get through my own rough times and the things I have in my life, it's just as profound for me. So I think it's just such a beautiful gift that we've all been given. Don't you say? I think so. I really do.
And look how many friends we have.
We absolutely owe so much to Toriyama-san just being here today in this room of everybody.
Absolutely.
And 30 years getting to celebrate this giant history, this amazing legacy that we all have. And the fact that it's still going, that Dragon Ball Super is still on Toonami, and like we mentioned, that the Tournament of Power is underway and that its new dub episodes are coming out for people. And I actually want to talk about Super a little bit as well and dive into that.
Yeah.
What are some of the favorite things that you've learned about your character over the course of Dragon Ball Super? We'll start with...
Well, I really feel like in Dragon Ball Super, they really emphasize Goku's desire to fight the strongest no matter what. We also learned that Goku does not understand cell phones, or he's a cabbage farmer at some point, or what was he farming at the beginning? Turnips or something? I've learned more that, I mean, while Goku can be very doofy, he's also a long game strategist, and he's very smart in that way. And I also learned that there are very many more hair colors they planned on going through I'm waiting for the rainbow wig from the guy in John 3:16 and the football thing. Anyway, so there's a lot of different things I've learned about this character. What about you, Chris? Sorry.
I mean, I think my favorite thing that I learned is that Vegeta and Bulma are actually married, and they do love each other. So I loved finding out why Vegeta, like why Saiyans pick their wives. They like to pick strong women. I love Vegeta's like. I like that it's kind of proven that he can be a kind of a more balanced character than just a guy who's angry all the time. You really
You see his softer side a little, his physical side even.
Yeah, like a comical side. I love, like just as a family man. I think maybe some of that's because I also have a family and 2 kids and stuff like that. I can sort of relate him in that sort of way. Never been as angry as he has, but yeah, I just like
I have.
I don't know, some of what I love about Dragon Ball Super is that we are learning more about the characters after getting to know them so well in Dragon Ball Z. Like, we were doing the same story for a very long time and we really got to know these characters, and Dragon Ball Super has given us an ability to use our voices that we've kind of honed over all these years of working on it.
Thank God they're aging too.
Yeah, thank goodness. Yeah, it gives us the ability to kind of hone our skills and do something awesome.
Yeah?
Go ahead.
Well, for me, it's just that Bulma's gotten so much stronger in Super, right? Like, I always knew that she was sassy and that she had an edge to her, but this is the first time. I mean, I think it was Resurrection of F when she's yelling at Frieza, and I personally am going, don't do that! She's like, you're ugly, and oh my gosh, Bulma, calm down. But I love that too, and we also are seeing her take more of a maternal kind of role. Like, instead of just yelling at everybody, you see that she cares about everybody, and she's making sure, like, oh, is Krillin okay? Is my husband okay? Is my best friend okay? And I really love that she's kind of become the mama bear. And so much so that she'll insert herself, like we saw in the Broly movie. She's like, you're not leaving without me. Like, I'm going with you.
Yeah.
And I love that she's like stood up for herself and inserted herself in the action. Good for her.
Mine was the same thing based on family. I've learned that now his strength comes from his family, and he's able to be stronger than he's ever been before because his wife and daughter said, you need to do this, because he was just working as a cop, he was fine, and he gets shot, and he's like, okay, I'm done, and then his wife saying, this is not the warrior I married, and he's like, oh crap, okay, I guess I gotta get to work, and then he starts working out and becomes even stronger than he was before.
Aww, family.
I know, it's much more, it's got such a wholesome aspect to it in some unexpected ways in Super, which has been really cool to see the characters changing and evolving.
The show itself evolves, and it becomes much more deep and intertwined with these people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to mention this though. One thing I have noticed is one of my favorite things I've learned is where Yamcha lives now. Because they show his apartment occasionally, and if when you guys are watching it, like if you're rewatching it or if you haven't seen it yet, they'll occasionally cut away to where Yamcha's living now. He has, admittedly, like the penthouse suite of this 4-story place, and I think he has the whole floor, but it is the single most boring place in the world. It's like flat walls, nothing on them except for one picture above his bed, which changes occasionally, and I want to know the story behind that. One chair at his table, which is sad because he knows no one's gonna come visit him. A vase, like a vase sitting on the table and just cracks in the walls, and that's it. That's all he has. And his bed that he shares with his cat.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Come visit him.
Poor option. All right, so besides Universe 7, what universe would you want